Welcome to Motorsport Coaching, the podcast for racers with racers. Miss Motivate can help get you to the next level. Every episode, she talks to the best racers of today and those that can get you there. She'll help you get better.
Racing news.
At fitness, nutrition, sports psychology, sponsorship, social media, public relations, and media training. Connect with Miss Motivate at motivatetraining.com.au. That's MOTIV8 training.com.au. And now, to help get you to the next level, Miss Motivate herself, Belinda Risley.
So thank you, Tim, for joining us today at Motorsport Coaching. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, again, my name is Tim Laskis, and I'm a Motocross Mental Performance Coach here in the United States. And my background, actually, I have a doctorate in clinical psychology, and I have many years of working in mental health. And going back prior to that, I grew up racing amateur motocross, and it was just a big part of my life. My dad and I were traveling every weekend and going to different amateur events around the country here in the United States. And it was a great time. I mean, it's some of the best moments of my life that I've had with my dad. And a lot of those lessons, I kind of carried on through life, and I was able to utilize those in just regular day situations and working and going to grad school when things were tough. So back in 2014, I was looking for a place to ride that's local around where I live here in South Carolina. And I came across a training facility called ClubMx, and it's pretty popular here in the States for motocross racing. And it's a training facility where pretty much racers of many different ages, I would say from early teens all the way up into mid-20s, they go and they live at this facility, and they have multiple tracks. They train. They have a nutritionist there. They have riding coaches, they have fitness coaches. And so I had contacted the owner, Brandon Haas, and I said, hey, I used to race as an amateur, and I would love to be able to, help your guys. I have a doctorate in clinical psychology. And he's like, yeah, come on down. And I started working, and I've been there ever since. And I just do it part-time, but I really enjoy it. And it's just fun being back. I'm not racing anymore, but it's almost like I am. I really get to live through, my clients that I work with. So it's a lot of fun.
Oh, it sounds like an amazing facility. I wish we had one of those here. Is it a franchise? Is it MX?
It's not a franchise. No, they only have one facility. But Brandon Haas is originally from Minnesota in the northern United States, and he came down to South Carolina where it's a little bit warmer. We don't have quite as brutal of a winter here. We may have a little bit of snow, but not much. And so they can pretty much train year round here. And so he came down with some investors, and they opened up, and it's just really, really grown. And they've, added all sorts of buildings. They even added a wakeboarding facility that's part of the training. Wow. So in the summertime when the guys are, it's 100 degrees out, and after they've pounded out some laps on the track, they can go out and ride the wakeboard course. It's pretty cool. So yeah, they have a place. They have like little cabins where people can live in.
Oh, wow.
They have a number of kind of RV parking spots where they can pull in their RV or their motorhome or their trailer, whatever it is. And so I think at full capacity they're up to about 25 riders, give or take, that live there full time. That's part of the training facility. And then they also have a practice facility across the street for people who just want to come and ride and just kind of perfect their skills, but not be a part of the full-time facility. And they're not really taking advantage of the coaches and the fitness trainer and the nutritionist and my services as a mental performance coach. But they have a lot to offer for everyone. Yeah. And we have guys from around the world. We have people from, South America, Central America, from New Zealand, Canada. I mean, all over the world. I think, and we have one guy that's from Spain now who's there.
Wow.
So, yeah. So the word has gotten out. So people are showing up from all over.
No wonder you love going to work every day. It just sounds like it's a boys' club.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. I wish they had these facilities when I was growing up, and maybe I would have been a lot better and turned professional, but they didn't have it. So
Who is it tailored for? Is it for the amateurs to elite, or is it really for anyone? Like, how do the 25 riders get established? Who gets to train them?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's basically open to guys who really want to take up their riding skills to the next level. Many times we have kind of some early kind of newbie riders, so-called to the sport, and then we have some more advanced amateur riders who are getting ready to go into the pro ranks, and so they come here to really polish their skills so that they can take it to the next level. And then we have kind of our tier of professional riders from around the world as well, and they come to work on their skills. And we have new pros, and then we have more seasoned veterans. So we kind of have a wide range of, really novice amateur riders, but very few of those. And then we have more advanced amateur riders, and then new pros, and then more seasoned veteran professionals.
Fantastic. And is there many women?
Occasionally there are a couple, not a lot, but yeah, there are a few that do show up, and they go out and they train just as hard, if not harder than the guys, for sure.
Oh, without a doubt, trying to. So, Tim, you ever worked with some of the fastest riders on the planet? What work do you do exactly with them?
Yeah, it depends on the rider. Every person is different, and they have different skill sets and different needs. And so I work with him or her based on, what is going on with them at the moment. In general, just to kind of give you an idea of some of the things that we do, it could be that let's take a new professional and who maybe they just signed their first professional contract, and so there is a lot of pressure for them to perform for a new team, sponsors, and there's a lot of money on the line, and then there's fans, and there's everybody that just kind of wants a piece of them, and they kind of get thrust into the limelight, and it's almost really overwhelming, and so they struggle with being able to ride as good as they did as an amateur before they turn pro, because they get out there and they're just overwhelmed by everything that's going on, especially in Supercross here in the United States, where they run these races within our football stadiums, and they see thousands of people, and it's a big spectacle, and they have fireworks, and they have a real kind of amazing entry into when it starts, and there's music, and there's all kinds of, it's almost like going to a rock concert, so to speak. And it's great for the fans, but it's overwhelming for the new riders. And they could sit on the line and they could look up into the stands and see, thousands and thousands of people just screaming and yelling, and it's just, at times it's hard for them to focus. So it's difficult for them to maintain that deep kind of slow breathing. And that's one of the things that I really work with them is their breathing, and to help regulate that, to keep their heart rate low, so that when the gate does drop and they're competing, that their adrenaline is just not flooding their system, then their muscles start to lock up, and then they kind of get this, they call it kind of brain fog, when you get overstimulated, and they can get tired really easy, even though they're in the best shape of their lives. Many times, if they allow that anxiety to get out of control, it creates havoc, and they just go out and perform poorly. And after the race is over, they're scratching their head going, I don't know what happened. I've been training. I'm in shape. I know what I'm doing. And everyone around them who sees them training goes, yeah, you are. I don't know what's going on. And a lot of times it's mental, and something has happened, and they've just been overwhelmed with the situation, and they couldn't handle it. And it's normal. It's more common than a lot of people, would assume.
So you mentioned that a lot of your work is conducted online. So how do you address those issues if you're not actually seeing them perform on that evening?
Yeah, and that's a great question. When I initially started working at ClubMx, I would drive there. It's about 2 hours away, and so I was doing a lot of commuting, and it was becoming very taxing. And because I do other things, I also teach, and I'm a psychologist as well, and so. I started thinking there has to be a better way to use technology to be able to work with these riders. And so I started working with them over the phone, because a lot of my pro guys would travel either to Canada, or sometimes, depending on where the next couple of races are going to be, they may go out to California for a few weeks. And so if I was only seeing them in person, then we would miss out. So I started utilizing, phone sessions. And so that has worked well, because a lot of times, and even when I would show up to clubs, sometimes they would get pulled away by other obligations from their team, or maybe they had a photo shoot somewhere or something came up, and then we would just miss our session. But with the phone, it's easy for us to, many times it's late at night where we can connect and I can talk with them. And so the benefit is they can be anywhere and I can be anywhere, and it really works for us to still stay connected. Now, the downside to that is if we're only talking, sometimes I miss out on those kind of body language or being able to kind of visually see them. Maybe over the phone they're telling me, hey, I'm doing great, I'm feeling good, but their body language is telling me something different. And as a psychologist, I'm taking everything in, and I want to match. Is it what you're saying and how you look and present to me? Is it all kind of matching up? But I've gotten pretty good to be able to kind of read their voice, to kind of tell if they're really just trying to put on a show for me or whatnot. But after I've worked with a number of riders for a while, I kind of pick up on, little nuances of their behavior and their mood and how things are really going. So that's worked out really well. Another thing that I do with the guys is to do kind of, I call it a telegroup, where every Wednesday with all the riders who are at ClubMx, they'll go into a clubhouse. So they have a big clubhouse there, and they have a large flat panel screen TV, and they'll project me onto the TV using my iPhone. So they will call me on my iPhone using FaceTime. And so they will project me on the TV, and I can see them on my phone, although it's hard for me to see because they're very small, but they can see me, in large with their big screen TV. And so I'll run a group, that way. And that's been really beneficial as well. But again, a lot of times I can't see everybody in the group. I can only see where, the camera is. And so I don't get a good wide kind of, snapshot picture of everyone. But it's worked out well, and I think the guys have really enjoyed it. So I've lately tried to utilize more technology in the work that I do, and I think it's really worked out. At times it's difficult if you're used to just doing groups, in person, or you're used to doing individual sessions in person, but you just get used to it. And I think technology is something that is very beneficial, and it's helped me to stay connected. And so really there's no reason, why I shouldn't, be talking with my riders, because they can be anywhere in the world if they have an internet connection or a phone. And I mean, and it's amazing. I've even talked to some of my guys when they're at the airport. Yeah. They're waiting for their flight. And so if I wasn't using the phone, we wouldn't have a session for that week. And so that's worked out well. Now, you had asked about, me not being able to see them ride. Well, a lot of times I'm able to watch, at least for my pro guys, I can watch them race on the television over the weekend. Mm-hmm. My guys are racing depending on the season, either in the Monster Energy Supercross or the Lucas Oil Pro Motocross, which is televised here in the United States, and you could watch it anywhere in the world. So, a lot of times I'll just watch it. I'll pull it up on my computer and I'll watch the races, so I know how they've done. And so then, in a couple of days after the race, when we talk, I'll say, okay, I watched your race. Tell me what was going on. And so I kind of pretty much know, how well they did and what some of the issues are. But depending on the camera and what was picked up and what wasn't, I don't know everything, but I let them fill in the blanks, and it's worked out well.
And would you say the most common problem they're coming to you with is that brain fog that you mentioned before?
Yeah, I would say a big part, especially for the new guys. Sometimes the guys will, maybe even the more seasoned ones, they get to maybe having some issues with burnout. And in any sport or even profession, you've been doing it long enough, you get to the point where you're like, this is becoming a drag. It's not fun anymore. It's not as exciting. And so those are some of the issues I have with more of the seasoned veterans, and and second guessing themselves, and also especially when contracts come up and it's time for them to maybe get re-signed or maybe not, and that's very, very stressful. And so for them to have someone that they can talk to, and for me, I'm probably one of the first people that they or maybe the only person in many of their lives that they can talk to me in a confidential way where I have no invested interest in how well they do. I mean, yeah, of course I wish them all well, but if you look at it, say their team owner, who pays them, they pay them a lot of money, and they pay them the money because they expect them to go out and win and perform. So there's an expectation.
Yeah.
They have a lot of fans. What did the fans have expectations? They're going to go out and perform. Their sponsors, their gear sponsors, or whatever it is that they're getting paid for, those sponsors have expectations. We want you to go out and perform, show our product, get up on, on the podium, and anything that's, out of first, second, or third is not good. And so, they're just being pulled in many different directions. And even their family and friends many times have expectations of them. And so I'm one of the first people that they have in their lives that I have no expectations. I don't expect anything from them. If they win, great. If they come in last place, that's okay. I'm still there for them. And they kind of feel that it's a breath of fresh air, so to speak, because they've never had that. And they also have trust issues. It's especially with the way social media is. Anything that they say, that if they sneeze the wrong way, people are tweeting about it, and so we have a contract that says that everything that we talk about, we discuss, that share, is totally confidential. And they're just like, what? What does that mean? And so once I explain it, and they go, oh, that is great, because they have they have a small circle of friends because they don't trust anyone. And that's one of the reasons that I always talk about who I work with. I just say, hey, I work at ClubMx. You could go online and you could find out who's trained at ClubMx, and you could try to put pieces together, but I'm not going to tell you who I've worked with. But for many of them, it's really worked out well.
And what are some of the strategies that you've helped them implement or taught them about dealing with, the overwhelmness of the sport, of the expectations that people put on them?
Yeah. A lot of times they're thinking too much into the future instead of thinking about, okay, what is in front of me right now? And I think looking too far into the future puts a lot of stress on them, and it doesn't allow them a couple of things. One, it doesn't allow them to enjoy the moment, and they kind of miss what's going on. They're going to all these different races, these different events, and it's almost like a blur because they're never really even thinking about the race they're in. They're thinking about, okay, I have to finish, or okay, what's the next race, or what's this, or what's that, and they're just not enjoying it. So helping them to really enjoy the moment and to kind of just be mindful of, where they're at. Okay, what is happening around you? Just focus on what's right in front of you at the moment. What are you doing right now? Well, I'm eating my lunch in between the races. Okay, then enjoy your lunch. Don't think about anything else. Just enjoy the moment. And then to have them kind of practice that, because a lot of times their minds will race as far as, they're going a million miles an hour. They may be sitting and it looks like they're relaxed, but their mind is going. And so even though they're sitting, they're not really relaxed. And having them to be able to regulate their breathing, stay in the moment, and enjoy, just being there where they're at, and just take it all in. And also, I think another thing is sometimes they feel like they can never say no to anyone.
Yeah.
And when they do that, they get pulled in a lot of different directions. And they need to take time for the fans. They need to take time, and meet their contract obligations. But they also need to set some time for themselves and to be able to get away and escape and say, hey, for this next 30 minutes, I just want to be alone. I don't want anyone to bother me. And that's okay, and help them understand that there's nothing wrong with that. You need that downtime. And I think it depends on the personality. Some riders who are more extroverts, meaning they get their batteries charged by being around others, they don't really have that problem as much. They love to be out with the fans all the time, to be around friends and family and everybody all the time. It just energizes them. And there's other riders who are more introverts, And so they can do the fan thing, they can be around lots of people, but they recharge their batteries by being alone, and they need that time. So, to be able to help them build in that extra 30 or 45 minutes of just alone time. It's like, okay, guys, nobody bother me. Let me go lock myself into over here and let me recharge my batteries. And when I come out, then I'll do my thing.
Yeah.
And so to be able to work with them, in that way is really important.
And do you find that sometimes the introverts get targeted a lot more from the media, saying that they're rude to fans, they're the ones that will more or less come straight off their cart or bike and they go straight to their trailer, but that's how they deal with issues?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah, I think they can easily Right. They could be easily misunderstood, and they could get a name for themselves in a bad way because, they may say, oh, well, because sometimes they may appear arrogant or conceited or, really just pompous and they're just, they just go there to make money and then they just retreat and they don't give back to the, to the sport. And there may be guys that have that attitude, but I think a lot of them many times are just misunderstood, and they just love their quiet time. And they're probably, some of them are very shy, and they're not sure what to say in all situations and settings. So instead of being uncomfortable and putting themselves out there, they don't do it as much. They just kind of revert back. They go out to the track, they do their thing, and then they go back, and that's where they feel more comfortable. Instead of, being out there and just feeling, okay, I don't need to feel anxious, anymore. Racing makes me feel anxious enough. So, so definitely they could be misunderstood for sure.
I think so. I have a few clients like that. Hence the question. Now, Tim, you also consult to some of the race teams. What issues do race teams face when it comes to sports psych?
Mm-hmm. I would say teams in general, when you think of a team, there's a team consists of many people. And when you have many people, you have different personalities, and then you have communication. And so when you have people with various personalities and they come together, many times they also have different ways of communicating. And probably one of the biggest problems that happens on teams is poor communication. Someone gets their feelings hurt. Someone says, oh, I can't believe the way he talked to me. Or, I went up and asked a question and you just ignored me, or whatever it might be. I think if teams all took a personality assessment as a group, and they have these, they're kind of fun to do. And many times they're used in business settings, and they're quick and they're easy. They're not like clinical, assessment tools, but they're more fun. They're personality assessments built for kind of the workplace. And people really start to see, okay, how do I like to communicate, and how do I like to receive communication? Everybody kind of learns that. Okay, let me learn about myself, and then let me learn about how I like to communicate. And then you get to learn about everyone in their team. And so you learn that, okay, Bill is someone who likes his quiet time, and he's just very blunt, and he doesn't mean anybody any harm. He doesn't mean to be rude and kind of cranky all the time, but that's just his style of communicating. And when people kind of learn these different little, personality quirks and issues about each other, a lot of times we don't get offended. And I think that happens a lot is when people have miscommunication, they get offended easy. And then what happens when you get offended and you feel like someone's treated you wrong or they didn't respond the way that you expected, then the walls go up. And then it's like, everybody's got their arms crossed, and then everybody's defensive. And then it just, I just think communication is the biggest key to a team being able to function. And many times teams can do well when the rider's doing well. They're winning races, everybody's happy, it's great. But when things are right, when there's mechanical problems and the bike's breaking or the rider's not really living up to the standards of the team, then everybody's pointing fingers. Then you start to see the real crankiness come out, and that's when people really need to choose their words wisely and communicate in a better form than than when they're racing, when everybody's happy.
And do you have any strategies or tips for husbands and wives that work together?
Well, that's a tough one. Yeah, when husbands, well, I guess as far when it comes to working as a husband and wife, don't do it. No, I'm just kidding.
Maybe doing the personality test as well.
Yeah, no, they really should. I think husbands and wives definitely should do the personality test. And
Be married.
one is fun. It takes a long time. It's called the MBTI, Myers-Briggs type inventory, and it's used in business a lot. But I think they have some kind of shortened editions. But yeah, many times husbands and wives, definitely it comes down to communication, and it's tough because when you're working together and you see each other in a work setting or out in the field somewhere or at a track, and then you come home and you see each other, and it's just like there's just like this big blur, of interaction, and everything just there's no real clear kind of your roles are just blurred into each other. Well, maybe one of you is a manager and the other is this, and then you get home and then you're the wife or you're the husband or this and that. And a lot of times things that are happening at home, if things are kind of a little bit shaky, they can easily get carried into the to the track or to the workplace, and vice versa. Things are going when you're working together and some things happen that made someone upset. Well, then it usually kind of comes home, and then you still have those residual effects as well. So I think it's really good. A good thing for a husband and wife team is to say, hey, whatever happens while we're working together, we leave it as our work thing, and whatever happens as as husband and wife, let's leave it at home, and let's just stay. Whenever I do something, let me know, and vice versa. Let's talk about it. Because I think that's one of the biggest things with husbands and wives is communicating is fine, and even arguing is okay because they're still communicating. But it's when the walls go up and then they stop communicating.
Yes.
Then that's a real problem, and then that's when the red flags are there. It's like, whoa, okay, when there's silent treatment's been going on for not hours, not days, but now it's weeks. It's like, whoa, yeah, definitely there's some issues. So it's tough. It's a challenge.
It is, but it is a very common challenge. So thank you for answering that question.
Oh, for sure.
So Tim, obviously you're very passionate about what you do. What do you love most about your role?
I love the flexibility. I'm someone I was never diagnosed with ADHD, but I get bored really easy. And so, with my training as a clinical psychologist, I'm able to do a lot of different things, which I do. I'm an instructor. I teach at a local university. I'm also the mental performance coach at ClubMx. I'm also a licensed psychologist, so I do contract work. And then, now I have my online course. So I really like that flexibility that I can do many different things. And I think if I had to just do one of those, I would probably get bored really easy. So for me to do a variety of things. Now, my wife says I really need to settle down because I'm doing way too much. And so she doesn't understand it, but she's great because she lets me just kind of, do my thing and whatnot. But to answer your question, I just like the flexibility. I like to be able to do many different things. And even with, working with my riders, sometimes I can talk to them at 10 o'clock at night, or it might be 8 o'clock in the morning. And I'm great. I love that. I love that it's not, just kind of a set schedule where I talk with them. Other people may not like that. They may not like, this kind of wild flux of times that, working late in the night or working early in the morning. But I love that. It keeps me going.
And what do you find is the most challenging issues you face in the business? Is it the flexibility? Is it the amount of time that you can't have doing this role, or the times that the riders are actually away?
Yeah, I would say there's just not enough time in the day. My wife and I, we have a young son, and he's 4, and he's just so much fun, and he's starting to ride motorcycles and whatnot, and so he's so much fun. And over the weekend we started playing golf together, so I bought him a small little golf club, and so we went to the driving range together. So now he's like, all crazy and took off. So I think for me, just I have to kind of reprioritize my time, and in fact, I've really limited the number of individual clients that I have as riders that I talk to, just because the family life is so important, and I want to try to a lot of people would say, well, you don't have a good balance of work life, but I'm working on it, and I think that's one of the biggest challenges is for me to have a better balance of spending time with my wife and with my son, as well as working, because I can easily become a workaholic and just work all hours of the day and night, and then lose track of time. And so that's a challenge for me.
And of course, that's because you have just been busy working on your new coaching course. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I was so excited to develop this. And when I told my wife I was going to, develop an online course, she goes, "Oh no, another project."
Yes.
And I'm like, "Yes, no, really, this is great." No. And I'm like, this is exactly right. I'm like, my schedules are crazy right now because it all requires time. And in order to build a course, yes, I need a lot of time, but it's in the beginning, because once I get it going, then it just kind of, it works itself.
Right.
But anyway, no, I had a number of people come up to me and they asked me, like, how do you become a motocross mental performance coach? And I'm like, well, the way I did it is probably not how many other people would do it. Most people don't want to go, to get their doctorate and spend, 5 years in graduate school and go into, a lot of debt. And so after I had a number of people, ask me that question, and I started thinking, I'm like, there really is no training program for people to become a mental performance coach. I have a lot of people who come up to me all the time who want my services, and I turn them down, and I'm like, I'm full, I really can't. And so that kind of got the wheels spinning, and I said, okay, I need to create a standardized program, because I've been teaching in a university level for over 10 years, teaching graduate students how to become counselors. And so they're almost like psychologists, but it's just a 2-year degree. And so they'll go back to school for 2 years, and then they can come out and become licensed counselors. And so they work in the mental health field. And so, I'm thinking, I'm like, well, if I can teach them how to do that, I know I can teach, others how to become a motocross mental performance coach. And so I just started putting the course together, writing ideas down. And after a couple months, I was able to really formulate it and put it together. And I had some help with people to be able to build a website for me and get the course up and going. And so now it finally is launched, and I have students from several different countries, from Canada, from the United Kingdom. And it's great. So I love it. And I'm hoping that other students will be able to get involved, to really see that hey, if they're in the motocross industry and they want to learn some new skills, maybe they're a riding coach or maybe they're a fitness trainer, I think it's important for them to have a new skill set to be able to help their riders. And and you and I had talked earlier about the different types of motorsports, and a lot of it applies, whether it's car racing or go-kart racing or motocross or any other kind of motorcycle or engine-driven type of competition. A lot of people can benefit from the tools that I provide.
And can you tell us a little bit about those tools? Because I was really impressed that one of the modules was actually the business side of things, on how to promote yourself to be a coach and how to get your first client. So can you tell us a little bit more in depth about what the course actually is?
Yes, absolutely. There's 17 lessons. And out of those lessons, 12 of the lessons have quizzes. And then at the very end, there's a final exam. There's a 50-question exam. But when I put together the lessons, I really wanted to give someone all the tools, not just kind of teach them, okay, well, how do you work with a rider? And if this issue happens, these are some of your go-to tools that you can use with him or her. Because that's kind of what I got when I went to graduate school. It's like, okay, I learned how to work with people who have mental health issues. But then once I got out there and to be able to start a private practice, no one ever taught me, okay, well, how do you start a business? Well, okay, how do you go out and get a license? How do you even market yourself. No one taught me any of that information, and it's almost as important as the actual, having the skills to work with someone. And so I really wanted to encompass kind of the A to Z of, all right, what is a motocross mental performance coach? Let me give you the basic definition. Now let's go into it and let me teach you all the skills and my go-to, really tricks of the trade for a variety of problems. Now that you have that, now let's go into, how do you set up your coaching business? And we go through, many different steps of that. Then I go into marketing. How do you actually find your first paying client? Because I think that's a big hurdle. And it's, for many people, they're very intimidated about that. They're like, okay, this is great. I can learn this new skill set. But how would I find anyone to even work with? And so, I really focused a lot on that, is how do you find your first paying client? And so I included that in there. So it really is the A to Z of online, kind of a course, so that someone is very confident in not only with working with racers, but also, feeling good that they can go out and start their own business. And I also added another component of that. Many times when we learn a new skill set, we have this imposter syndrome. We start to second guess ourselves. We're like, okay, yeah, I learned this stuff, but can I really do it? And so I talk about that within the course as well, is that this is a common thing that happens. You're going to second guess yourself. You have a new skill set and you're trying to go out and sell your new skills. And we all have this kind of little recording in the back of our mind going, you don't know what you're doing. What are you, you can't work with anyone, or you'll never find anyone, kind of this negative, some people have that, and they just don't have a lot of confidence in to be able to go out and really sell themselves and to pick up some new clients so that they can show them, yeah, they do know what they're talking about.
Fantastic. Now, you've just had the first intake. How's the course going to be run? Is it going to be intakes per year? Is it an evergreen course? Or how can people find out more about the course?
Yeah, the course, if they go to coachwherever.com, so that's coachwherever.com, and it's right there. And once they sign up for the course, it's lifetime. And so there will always be updates. I'm always adding videos. Right now, it's a combination of you can take it any time of the day or night, depending where you live. I mean, it's self-paced, it's online. So I see some of these new colleges and universities kind of selling their online courses, and you could be in your pajamas taking your course, and it's kind of the similar thing. But I don't know who would want to sit in pajamas, but I mean, maybe they would. But anyway, yeah, it's online, it's self-paced, it's part where you read through the material. There's videos as well. There's PDF forms that you actually use with your clients, and all the information that I could think of that would help you be successful. And so I continually go through the course every month, and I'm adding new skills. I'm adding new videos and new things that I think are going to be helpful for people who are going through it. And they'll always have access to it. So it's lifetime, and there's a 30-day money-back guarantee. So you could actually take the course, and go through it for 30 days and learn everything. And you're like, oh, I don't want it, and I'll give your money back. It doesn't matter. My wife and other people said, you're nuts. You gave them 30 days for it. I'm like, no, I believe in it so much. If someone wants to do that, fine, I'll give them their money back, because I want people to really feel like they got a lot of value. And that's, to me, that's very important, is I want to pack it with as much value as I can, so that, and it's not just about the money. I want people to feel like they really have those skills when they sign up and they go through this course. I want them to feel like, hey, they could go out and benefit and help other people. And that's the most important thing. I really don't want people who want to take the course and just get a certificate and then do nothing with it. I want people to go out and use this, because it is there are valuable tools in there. And if you're really motivated and you're passionate about helping others, and I think that's one of the most important things. If you're passionate about helping others reach their goals, then this is the course for you. If your only focus is to go out and just make money, and just start charging people left and right, then this isn't the course for you, because that's really not the focus.
And so it's tailored for coaches at the moment. Would there be another course coming out for riders and drivers in the near future, Tim?
There possibly could be. Absolutely. You never know. It's certainly, but I think a lot of the skill set really, regardless if you're on 2 wheels or 4 wheels, really translates into both of those worlds. But I do have a plan for teaching more of my kind of advanced how to run groups, because I think that's another skill set that's a little bit different than just working with someone one-to-one. But when you're actually running groups and how to work with a variety of riders, like some of my groups are 25 plus riders, and that could be intimidating for a lot of people. So that's going to be kind of an advanced course that's in the works.
Fantastic. And through your experience, Tim, at what stage of one's racing career do you think they need to engage with a coach, whether it's physical or mental coaching? Is it an age thing, do you think, or is it certainly a career development step?
That's a great question. I think it depends on the rider. I've had some parents come up to me and say, "Hey, I would like you to work with my son or daughter," and they're still young, maybe early teens or whatnot. And after talking to them, to the riders, and they're like, I don't really know. I wouldn't force it on anyone. I think the rider has to be ready. I don't think it's any good. It's not time well spent for the rider, and especially it's not time or money spent by the parents to be able to kind of force their young rider to have a mental performance coach. I think the person needs to be ready. They need to be able to see value in it and to recognize, hey, there's some things I need to work on. Certainly if their rider came to them, either the riding coach or their parent, and they're so like, oh, I'm always nervous on the line. I really need some extra help with this. And then they reached out. I think that would be appropriate. But everyone is different. There are some amateur riders that can just do phenomenal as an amateur, and they never really need a lot of help when it comes to mental performance coaching as an amateur until they get to that pro level. And then once they hit that pro level, things change, and they just have a really difficult time adjusting. And then there's other riders who really need that assistance as an amateur growing up that really gets them to the top of the amateur ranks, and then they have an easy time within the pro. So it all depends on the individual. It depends on the rider, when they should really utilize someone. But again, I think it depends on the rider when they recognize that, hey, they have some issues that they need to work on.
Fantastic. And one of those resources that you have available for people to get more education around success in sports and business is your own podcast. Tell us a little bit about that. What types of conversations do you have on your podcast?
Yeah, well, the podcast is called the Tim Laskis Show. And when I started this podcast, I've had 100 episodes. And when I started it, it was all about success. And so I have interviews with some of the most successful people in business, entertainment, and in sports. And there's a common thread that really transpires through those who are successful. And it doesn't matter whether it's in business or sports or entertainment. I love to hear those stories. I kind of grew up, just wanting to read books about successful people. And then, within the last couple of years, listening to some other podcasts that had, success stories. And I thought, wow, I would really like to have that as well. But a lot of times they were either just, business podcasts, or maybe they were just the only sports podcast. So I really kind of combined, all the worlds together. And it was really fascinating because I've had some conversations with some great people, within the sport of motocross, and even some kind of industry leaders within motocross who are in the business side but are well known within the sport. And to be able to bring their stories, to the public and for others to hear, how did they get to where they were, to the top of that mountain, whatever that was. And it just, for me, it's about giving back. When I went back to school to become a psychologist, it's because I wanted to help people and I wanted to give back, to people. And the podcast is an extension of that as well. It's like, if I can share an inspiring story with someone and you can learn something from it that motivates you and gets you fired up, or, you learn a little trick or tip or something that gets you to that next level, then, it's well worthwhile. And that was really my focus for being able to do that, is to, not only motivate people, but also to provide them with some real actionable advice.
Fantastic. And Tim, can you recommend any resources, paid or free, that competitors can look into more for mental performance?
Yeah, and that's tough to come by when, that Racer X has a virtual trainer. It's a motocross industry platform. They have a publication, a magazine for motocross racers, and they have their own online website, and it's called the Virtual Trainer. And they offer a variety of tips on there, from like physical training tips to even mental training tips as well. And actually, I'm going to be writing some articles for them very shortly. And so I'm pretty excited. And that was one that I had kind of found, recently over the last couple of months, that I thought was great. And to be able to learn get some actionable advice from some of the top trainers in the motocross industry. And so I loved it. And then I reached out to them and I'm like, hey, I'd like to, offer my advice as well. So they said yes. So that,
just to do it in all your free spare time.
all my free, all that I have. I don't know if I told my wife about the virtual trainer thing.
You get that one off with the wife first.
If she hears this podcast, then she'll know about it. So I'll have to keep that on I forgot to mention that to her. Shh, let's keep that quiet.
Well, Tim, thank you very much for your time today. Before you go, our final question on every podcast is, what is your favorite track in the world?
My favorite track in the world? Oh boy. I would say it would have to be Muddy Creek Raceway in Tennessee, in Bluntville, Tennessee. I grew up racing there as an amateur, and now they hold professional national events there. I was there watching the pros race this year. And it's just a natural terrain track, and I love it. It's built kind of in between two mountainsides, and so the track just winds up and down. It's really natural terrain. It's really fast. And it's just a beautiful setting, and I always love going up to Tennessee and being in the mountains. And so that's one of my favorite places for sure.
Oh, fantastic. Lovely answer. Well, thank you very much for joining me today, Tim. All the information regarding Tim's course will be in the show notes. And what's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, on Facebook, it's Coach Wherever, or Tim Laskis, Laskis, or by email at tim@timlaskis.com, and of course at coachwherever.com. There is a way to reach out, the contact page there as well.
Well, thank you, Tim. We look forward to seeing what happens in the next installment of the coaching course.
Yes, thank you very much for having me. It was a blast.
Thanks, Tim.
Well, thanks everyone for listening to this week's show. I really hope you enjoyed that one as much as I did. Now, remember, all the show notes with the links and the specials mentioned in today's show are available over at motivatetraining.com.au. If you haven't already, I'd really appreciate it if you could head to iTunes or Stitcher, type in Motorsport Coaching, subscribe, and leave us a review. Each week, I'll read them out, and you'll go into monthly draw to win a fantastic prize. If you have any questions or comments, please email us at motivatetraining.com.au or head over to our Facebook page at motivatetT. Until next time, take care.
Get ready for the race.
Do you feel one step closer to being the next superstar behind the wheel? Motivatetraining.com.au for more. MOTIV, 8, training.com.au.
The green flag.
Every episode gets you one step closer to the checkered flag. The Motorsport Coaching Podcast, getting you to the checkered flag faster.